Hollywood's toughest working-class hero stepped onto the set of The View expecting a simple interview. Instead, it turned into one of the most intense live moments in television. Mark Wahlberg had come to promote his new movie, but what awaited him felt more like an ambush. If you think you've seen celebrity meltdowns before, think again. This confrontation between Mark and Joy Behar quickly became a fiery clash about pride, past mistakes, and what it means to stay true to your roots, all unfolding in front of millions of viewers. The cameras rolled as the studio audience cheered when Mark Wahlberg walked onto the stage. His confident Boston swagger was there, though slightly muted by the tension hanging in the air. Wearing a navy suit and an easy smile, he shook hands with the co-host as the applause faded. He took his seat, nodding warmly to Whoopi and Sunny before his eyes landed on Joy Behar. Her grin already carried a sharp edge. "Welcome back to The View," Joy said, leaning toward her microphone with a glimmer in her eye. "Today we're joined by actor and producer Mark Wahlberg, who's here to promote his latest film." The slight pause after latest film didn't go unnoticed. Mark kept his smile polite. "Thanks, Joy. Always a pleasure to be here." Joy tilted her head slightly, the corners of her mouth curling. "Oh, I bet it is," she replied with a hint of sarcasm. "You know, Mark, you've had quite a career. Would you call yourself an accomplished actor?" A few nervous laughs rippled through the audience. Mark blinked, momentarily caught off guard, but he stayed calm. "Well, I've been fortunate," he said evenly. "I've worked hard, and I'm proud of the projects I've been part of." Joy laughed loudly, the sound cutting through the room. "Hard work? Or us playing the same tough guy from Boston in every movie? Because honestly, if you've seen one Mark Wahlberg performance, you've seen them all." The studio fell quiet. Mark's jaw tightened slightly, but he remained composed, folding his hands on the table. "Well, Joy," he said calmly, "I'd say each character has depth if you're paying attention." "Oh, I pay attention," Joy fired back. "I just haven't seen much depth. Your characters are either angry cops, angry soldiers, or angry boxes. At some point, you have to admit you're basically playing yourself." Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "Joy," as she started, but Joy waved her off. Mark straightened and met Joy's gaze directly. "If that's your opinion, you're entitled to it," he said. "But I think the millions of people who watch my movies and connect with them might disagree." "Ah yes, the relatable everyman," Joy sneered, making air quotes with her fingers. "Except this everyman lives in Beverly Hills mansions and wears $1,000 suits. How relatable is that?" Mark gave a small chuckle, though his eyes showed growing irritation. "I haven't forgotten where I came from." "Joy, you can be successful and still stay connected to your roots." Joy's expression hardened, her voice sharpening. "Oh please, you're as Hollywood as they come. You make millions pretending to struggle while real people out there actually do. You don't speak for working-class people anymore. You left that behind a long time ago." The audience fell silent again. Mark took a slow breath, his Boston accent becoming more noticeable. "That's a hell of an assumption. Joy, you don't know me and you definitely don't know where I came from." Joy leaned back with her arms folded, looking smug. "Maybe not," she said, "but I know what I see. And what I see is a man who traded his street credibility for a big paycheck and forgot what it means to fight for something." Under the table, Mark's fists tightened, though his face stayed controlled. "You got a lot to say about me, Joy," he replied slowly, "but it sounds like you might be talking about yourself." The audience gasped softly. Joy's cheeks flushed red as she leaned forward. "Oh, trust me. Mark will get to me, but right now we're talking about you, and I'm not finished yet." Mark leaned back slightly, his eyes narrowing just enough to reveal the tension building beneath the surface. "Neither am I," he said evenly. The stage was set. The lines had been drawn. As the commercial break approached, everyone in the studio and viewers watching at home knew they were about to witness something unforgettable. When the lights came back on and the camera started rolling again, Mark sat with his hands clasped, a faint tension visible along his jaw. Joy Behar leaned forward, her expression glowing with defiance and something close to excitement. Whoopi and the other hosts sat quietly, clearly uncomfortable, glancing between the two like they were watching a pair of fighters circle each other. Joy wasted no time. "So Mark," she began, her tone almost sweet. But her words were sweet on the surface and sharp underneath. "This new movie of yours, let me guess. Another angry guy from Boston with a chip on his shoulder. Or did you finally try something new and play an angry Boston guy wearing a different hat?" The audience laughed nervously. Mark smiled slightly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "That's funny, Joy," he said. "But if you actually watched the film instead of just reading the press notes, you'd know it's about redemption. It's about a man trying to make things right." Redemption," Joy said mockingly, clapping her hands dramatically. "How fitting. Your entire career seems to be about trying to redeem yourself for what happened before Hollywood stepped in." The words hung in the air sharply. Mark's back stiffened, but he stayed calm. "You want to talk about my past? Fine," he said evenly. "I've made mistakes. I've admitted them, and I've worked hard to build a better life." Joy jumped in immediately. "Admitted them? Or just brushed them aside while smiling for the cameras? Because to me it still looks like the same old Mark Wahlberg, just wearing a nicer suit." Mark's lips pressed into a thin line. "You really enjoy tearing people down, don't you?" Joy leaned back confidently. "I enjoy pointing out hypocrisy when I see it. You act like you represent the little guy, but in the end you're just another millionaire who made money pretending to care." The audience murmured uneasily. Mark tapped the arm of his chair once, then folded his hands again. His voice stayed calm. "You don't know me, Joy. You don't know what I do when the cameras aren't rolling. And you definitely don't know what I care about." "Oh, I think I do," Joy replied, her voice rising slightly. "You care about box office numbers. You care about your image. And you care about staying relevant by playing the same tough guy over and over because you're afraid to take a real risk." Mark let out a short, humorless laugh and shook his head. "You know what's funny? You sit here every day talking about kindness and equality, but the moment someone disagrees with you or doesn't fit your story, you treat them terribly." That comment landed heavily. Even Whoopi raised her eyebrows, but Joy stayed unfazed. "Better that than being a fraud," she said, leaning forward across the table. Mark's eyes narrowed slightly, though his voice stayed steady. "Is that what you think I am? A fraud? Because I've spent my whole life trying to prove otherwise." Joy hit the table with her hand. "Oh, please. You think acting in movies for millions of dollars counts as working your whole life? Real people, the ones you say you represent, are the ones who truly struggle. You're a Hollywood creation, Mark, nothing more." Mark's fists tightened on the table, his knuckles turning white. But his tone remained controlled. "You can say whatever you want about me, but don't disrespect the people who support me. The same people you criticize every day." Joy laughed sharply. "Oh, don't flatter yourself. People don't support you. They support the idea of you, because it's easier than admitting you're another privileged man who got lucky." The tension in the studio became overwhelming. Even the camera zoomed in on Mark's face as his jaw tightened and his eyes darkened. He leaned forward slightly and spoke slowly. "You've got a lot of opinions about me, Joy, but here's the truth: you're not interested in hearing anything real. You just want to win." Joy leaned closer, matching his posture. "Oh, Mark," she said, "you don't understand. I already have." That confident smile was the final spark. Mark leaned back in his chair, letting the silence stretch between them. He exhaled slowly, his eyes still locked on hers. Whoopi finally spoke carefully. "Maybe we should move back to the movie." But neither of them reacted. Joy smiled politely, though her eyes were intense. "Oh no," she said. "We're just getting started." Mark's faint smirk showed both disbelief and challenge. "You're right," he said quietly. "We are." The studio felt completely still. The audience sat silent, watching the two of them like spectators at a boxing match. Mark slowly adjusted his cufflinks before resting his hands on the table again. His jaw remained tight, but his voice was steady. "You really enjoy this, don't you?" he said at last. Joy raised an eyebrow, her smile widening. Enjoy what? Mark, she replied, asking the questions nobody else is brave enough to ask. No, Mark replied quickly, leaning forward a little. You enjoy humiliating people. You don't care about the truth. You care about getting applause. You care about looking clever while putting someone else down. The audience began to murmur, some agreeing, some disagreeing, as the tension in the room continued to rise. Joy scoffed and waved her hand dismissively. Please, spare me the wounded tough guy act. You're an actor. Mark, you're good at pretending, but you don't scare me. Good, Mark said, leaning back with a quiet voice. Because you don't impress me. The remark landed hard. Joy's nostrils flared as she straightened in her chair. You know what your problem is. You've spent so much time being told how great you are that you actually believe it. Mark tilted his head slightly, a faint smile forming. You know what your problem is. You've spent so much time tearing other people down that you've forgotten how to stand for something yourself. That comment clearly struck a nerve. Joy leaned back briefly, her eyes narrowing before she leaned forward again. Nice line, she sneered. But let's talk about what you really stand for. Average movies, forgettable performances, and a career carried by your ABS and your accent. The crowd gasped, and even Whoopi winced. Mark's jaw tightened, but he remained seated, his voice calm. That's an interesting comment coming from someone whose entire career has been sitting here criticizing people who are actually out there doing something. Joy let out a sharp laugh. Doing what? Playing pretend, acting like a hero while real people like me actually fight for something. Mark slowly shook his head. You're confusing fighting for something with fighting everyone. The audience burst into applause. A few people even stood up clapping, but Joy stayed unfazed. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a sharp whisper. You think that little speech wins you points? Please, your whole career has been one long Boston street hustle, just cleaned up for Hollywood. For the first time, a small crack appeared in Mark's composure. His eyes flashed slightly. He placed his hands flat on the table and leaned closer so she could see the seriousness in his expression. Say whatever you want about me, he said quietly, but don't insult the people I grew up with. You wouldn't last a day where I'm from. Joy smirked, clearly believing she still had the advantage. Oh really? What are you going to do, Mark? Take me outside and prove how tough you are. Maybe throw a punch like the old days. Mark exhaled slowly through his nose and shook his head. That's the difference between you and me. Joy, you think strength means shouting the loudest or throwing the first punch. Real strength is keeping your dignity when someone like you is trying to take it away. The words hung heavily in the room. Even the cameras seemed to pause. Joy's lips curled into a cold smile. Oh, Mark, she said, you already lost your dignity. You're just too arrogant to realize it. The silence that followed was overwhelming. The studio lights felt hotter, and the tension filled the room. Mark slowly straightened his tie. His face remained calm, but his eyes showed controlled anger. Then he spoke quietly but clearly. You know what? You're not worth it. Joy's smile faded for a moment before she snapped back. Oh, running away now. Typical. But Mark simply shook his head and slowly stood up. His chair scraped across the floor, the sound echoing in the silent studio. I'm not running, he said calmly. I'm walking away while I still have my self-respect. The audience gasped, then broke into uneven applause, some supporting him, others not. But everyone completely focused on what was happening. Joy leaned back with her arms crossed, looking confident, but there was a small hint of unease in her eyes, as if she realized she might have pushed things too far. Mark paused for a moment, looking around the studio, then down at her. You've shown everyone who you really are, he said simply. And so have I with that. He turned toward the side of the stage and began to walk away as the cameras followed him. His footsteps echoed through the studio as he approached the edge of the set. He didn't rush and he didn't look back. Every step was steady and deliberate. Mark moved with measured purpose, each step deliberate, as if the walk itself was part of his statement. Behind him, the studio buzzed with murmurs and uneasy laughter, the audience trying to process what had just unfolded. Joy sat rigid, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. Her earlier smirk was gone, replaced by an expression that flickered between anger and something like regret. Mark paused just before the curtain, then slowly turned back to face the audience one last time. The camera zoomed in, capturing his calm exterior, though his eyes still smoldered with quiet intensity. "I came here today," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned crowd, "to talk about my work, to share something I believe in. I was ready for tough questions. I was ready for disagreement. But what I wasn't ready for was cruelty disguised as journalism." Joy flinched at the word cruelty, but tried to mask it with a dismissive roll of her eyes. Mark stepped closer to the center of the stage, ensuring his words reached everyone watching at home. People tune in expecting honesty, a real conversation. Instead, what they get is someone using their platform to tear others down, embarrass them, and score cheap points at someone else's expense. The audience erupted, some cheering in support, others too stunned to react. A few even rose to their feet. Mark let the reaction settle before delivering his final, measured words. "You don't have to like me. You don't even have to respect me. But don't ever think your job gives you the right to treat people like they're beneath you. That's not journalism. That's just bullying with better lighting." Joy opened her mouth as if to respond, but no sound came out. Mark nodded once, almost to himself, then turned and walked the final few steps to the curtain. As he disappeared into the wings, the crowd broke into full applause, some standing, some shouting his name. Backstage, Mark's publicist and a pair of stunned producers stood frozen. He brushed past them with nothing more than a polite thank you, his composure entirely restored. On stage, Joy remained silent, staring at her hands. Whoopi, Sarah, and Sunny exchanged uneasy glances, clearly rattled. Whoopi finally broke the silence with a strained smile. "Well, we'll be right back after this break." But everyone on set and at home knew there was no returning to normal after what had just occurred. Within minutes of the cameras stopping, social media exploded. Clips of the confrontation flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Hashtags like #MarkWalkout and #Wahlberg began trending within hours. Fans and critics dissected every word and gesture, choosing sides, some praising Joy for her fearlessness, others hailing Mark as the embodiment of calm under fire. One thing was clear: public opinion was shifting strongly in Mark's favor. Headlines screamed, "Mark Wahlberg walks out on The View and wins the room." Joy Behar faces backlash after brutal interview. Even celebrities and former guests joined the conversation online, defending Mark's composure while criticizing Joy's aggressive tactics. Later that evening, Mark posted a brief statement on social media. "It's okay to disagree. It's okay to challenge someone. But it's never okay to humiliate them. Everyone deserves respect, even when you don't see eye to eye. Thank you to everyone who reached out. I'm proud to stand for what I believe in and to walk away when necessary." The post racked up millions of likes within hours. For her part, Joy remained silent, her silence louder than any defense she could have offered. And so the curtain fell not just on an interview, but on one of the most dramatic, unforgettable moments in daytime television history. The day Mark Wahlberg walked onto The View, kept his cool as long as he could, and then walked out not defeated, but victorious. What do you think? Did Mark handle it the right way? Did Joy go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes showdowns and untold celebrity moments. The next story is just around the corner.